Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Purple Insider. Matthew Coller here, and it is time for Monday Morning Murph with Brian Murphy. Murph, before you say a thing, I have a tweet that I need to read you from our friend Kevin Seifert of ESPN, okay?
He's good with these.
He says this: the Vikings have trailed for 3 minutes and 26 seconds this season, which we are aware of. He says, per ESPN research, that puts them in the highest of company. Only 4 other teams since the 1970 merger have trailed for less time in games 1 through 5. All went to the Super Bowl. And the teams, Murph, the 09 Saints, the 84 Dolphins, the 2023 49ers, the 99 Rams, and the 98 Broncos are the only teams that held the lead this much through their first 5 games. Your reaction, sir?
Those were all memorable teams. I can think, when I hear those, I could see the Super Bowls playing out. I can see the stories building up throughout the year. I mean, 98 Vikings, we don't need to talk about. 99 Rams, of course, came out of nowhere. The 84 Dolphins might have been the greatest team that never won a Super Bowl. Yeah, that's nice company to be in. And to piggyback off the lack of deficits, they've outscored their opponents 48-3 in the first quarter. As we've said time and again, they are punishing opponents and putting them on their heels quickly. And that forces teams to alter their game plans, alter their scripted plays. And it actually makes injects some panic early on, because now they have a body of work that also says we can't afford to get behind the Minnesota Vikings, because they're either going to pummel us all the way through, or we're just not. It's going to be too much of an uphill climb to ultimately take them down. Now, obviously, the last 2 weeks, second half performances have left much to be desired. But I think what's interesting about this team compared to other either 5 and 6-0 teams, or other teams that have gotten out to really good starts and looked like they were going to put together a playoff team, it was either dominated by one side of the ball, or there were glaring mistakes that were easy to identify that would eventually catch up to them. We can nitpick things, certainly. But boy, when you look top to bottom at the way the Vikings have really controlled their whole destiny so far through 5 games, it's really impressive. And I don't see them regressing in a way that they're going to lose games. They're not going 17-0. And if they do, and you want to replay this, I mean, I'll do whatever the fans need me to do, short of, personal harm, but I don't see them going 17-0. So hang on to your receipt just for fun. I just don't see this team having deficits in personnel or makeup or coaching that says this is all a mirage. It feels real. And it feels like something that's sustainable. Now, injuries come into play. Random things will happen to them badly. We had talked about this too. I never felt like they were going to lose in Green Bay, despite Green Bay's ferocious comeback in the second half. I did feel a little bit that they would lose this game yesterday once Aaron Rodgers got them driving down inside close to the red zone with about a minute left. Because you just had this sense that, yeah, the old man's battered and bruised, but he knows how to dagger the Vikings, and he has his entire career. He might have one more in his back pocket, because the Vikings had spoon-fed the Jets so much momentum. I don't feel that way now. I mean, Stephon Gilmore, among the many marquee free agent acquisitions, does what he does. He makes a money play at a money moment. You can almost argue that his contract, whatever they paid him or are going to pay him, just paid off with that play right there.
Oh, yeah, no, for sure. I mean, Stephon Gilmore has been really the final piece to this defense, which we thought could be pretty good, but we kept saying, that cornerback group, and he has played as well as they ever could have dreamed through these first few games. I guess older corners, if they make it this far, they still got a little left in the tank. How did you process what happened yesterday, Murph? Because on the post-game show, which started immediately after the game, I really oscillated back and forth between, I can't believe how good this defense is, another complete performance, so many contributors, Harrison Smith with the sack. Jihad Ward with a pass breakup at the end of the game, knocking a ball down and getting some extra rush. Grenard, Van Ginkel, touchdown. Like this, what a performance by the defense. But on the offensive side, this was by far the worst we have seen Sam Darnold look. He did not have his security blanket and Aaron Jones in the backfield throughout the day. He overthrew passes. He was a little bit off with some of his timing, and Kevin O'Connell kept pushing the pass button over and over and over, and they kept being aggressive down the field, which turned out to be costly in this game, almost giving away the ball on that 3rd and 15. How did you, I guess, deal with the fact that this was a pretty poor game by the quarterback, even though they found a way to win?
Well, I think it's obvious the impact and the versatility and value that Aaron Jones brings to the offense. And when they lost him to that hip injury, really things began to unravel. Darnold was off from the get-go. I don't know if it was the stadium, the rain, or just that he was due for an inaccurate, ineffective game. But you could tell early on this was not going to be his moment. He took a really wicked hit early in the game and absorbed that and had to be helped up. And he just felt he looked uncomfortable for really the first sustained period of time, although you can tack on the 3rd and 4th quarters in Green Bay and kind of make this the sample size you're looking at. But let's not forget, too, the Jets are a really good defense, ferocious, especially up front. So it's not surprising they were able to get pressure. So I would say, I'm not saying Darnold is regressing. I'm saying that he's more in the middle of where we've seen him in 5 games. He's not going to throw for 45 touchdown passes, and I don't know if it's a good thing if they expect him to, at least not yet. He's still trying to resurrect his career. He's not established enough to say go out and throw for 350 yards a night and win us everything. But it's going to bear witnessing how O'Connell updates us on Jones tomorrow, I believe, before they head into the bye. I mean, the bye comes in at a great time, obviously, for his health. That's one thing maybe reining in Darnold a little bit, see how he, kind of bounces back from, again, 6 rough quarters. If Jones is available, that kind of steadies things a bit. If he's not available, that opens up all kinds of possibilities as to maybe what the Vikings want to do at the trade deadline, how they want to diversify their offense, because clearly he really was kind of the pieces that made that unit tick through the first 4+ games. The other thing, the offensive line we had credited and still has protected Darnold pretty well, but the interior line, which had some question marks coming into the season, was exposed a bit yesterday, again, against a really tough Jets defense. Where's that going to be? They've been relatively healthy. That's probably going to be a unit that'll eventually get nicked up over the course of 17 games. So maybe their depth, the running back and offensive line positions. The punt team, you can chalk that up as just a bad day at special teams, but boy, what an impact they made. I mean, without those mistakes, this game could have been over in the 3rd quarter. So if we're going to nitpick, those are the things that I come out concerned about. But you can make an argument that they did not perform like an elite team, and that elite team should put a wounded animal down sooner than they did. But the flip side to that is elite teams also find a way to win when they're not playing as an elite team. And that's a badge of honor to carry. And that's, again, part of the scar tissue that you're going to build up throughout the season. And, if you can play subpar and your quarterback can have a 50 rating and you can still win by a touchdown in an unfamiliar place against an old nemesis like Rodgers, hey, that's a good place to be.
Well, you mentioned the quarterback rating. Did a little research on this one, Murph, that Sam Darnold has had 25 games in his career where he had a quarterback rating of 75 or less. And he was 2-23 in those games. And yeah, right. Now he's 3-23 because the Vikings found a way to win. I mean, that tells you 2 things. One, how strong they are. The kicker does not miss and came through with 2 huge long field goals for them. The defense makes plays both in the clutch, but also throughout the game that they get, the interception for touchdown, come right back, get another interception right after that. they have done such a great job pressuring consistently, turning the ball over. Nobody can run against them, which is a huge, huge deal that I wondered about coming into this year because they got a little lighter up front with some of the edge rushers, but they've just been terrific against the run. Getting pace back was a huge deal for them, and they were able to survive as bad as you're going to see Sam Darnold play. It's not like he has a ton of games in his career under 50 quarterback rating. That doesn't happen all that often. 14 for 31. Although I will say, if you included all the penalty flag yards and gave those as completions to Darnold, it would have looked a little better. Jefferson's stat line would have looked a little better. But still, to be able to have a complete performance outside of the quarterback and the offense and still find a way to win a game really is a sign of this team's overall strength. But I guess I wonder about what you think with Darnold when it comes to this performance in the last 6 quarters. If it just is that he needs a little bit more of Aaron Jones or always Aaron Jones more than he had during the game, or if Kevin O'Connell hasn't quite yet figured out how do you pull Sam Darnold back in when he's having a bad day? Because the answer seemed to be down the field, down the field, down the field. Even if it was 3rd and 2 or 4th and 2, it was still throw the ball down the field was O'Connell's answer. And maybe he just wants him to play like Matt Stafford did with the Rams when he threw for 5,000 yards and 20 interceptions or whatever it was in 2021. But I don't know if that's the way to get Darnold back on track when he's having a tough time.
Right, because Stafford came into LA with a 10-year resume that had all of his warts and all of his problems and all of his, I mean, he was too turnover prone in Detroit, but I mean, Detroit was a disaster most of the time he was there. Darnold's in a position, he's still trying to resurrect his career. He's still trying to level set, as it were. I mean, and he's not there. It's almost like O'Connell got a little bit drunk on Darnold through the first 3 weeks and thought, well, maybe we can open it up and keep the gas pedal jammed. And if we're struggling a little bit and we're not finding a rhythm and we need to really put this game away, let's work it downfield. Let's force it downfield almost. And if, it's one thing to have Jefferson climbing the ladder and making every catch, but if he's covered and he's been taken away and you're trying to find Jordan Addison 40 yards down the field, bad things can happen in some ways, because when you start throwing into that second level, tipped balls can happen. Accuracy is a little harder. You're maybe under a little more duress because you're hanging in the pocket longer, and those throws can end up in problem areas. And I credit O'Connell for trying to say, look, I want this team to know that I want to be aggressive, that I have their back. I want Darnold to know that I'm confident in his big arm and big boy ability, and I want to keep feeding him that. But he hasn't really shown for a sustained period of time that he can be that guy. Maybe he will. But I think you might want to just sprinkle some breadcrumbs in front of him a little bit more, instead of saying, hey, here's a juicy steak, go get it. So I like O'Connell's attitude, but I almost feel like he's getting a little bit ahead of himself and trying to be the smartest play caller in the room at every possible moment. And look, if they'd have hit like that 50-some yard strike to Jefferson against Houston and had put New York down 24-0, yeah, you could have just went out and run some errands and put this one away. It didn't happen that way. It wasn't just because of Darnold's poor play. There were other problems, penalties, not just on special teams, but overall, that kept spoon feeding the Jets momentum that they couldn't earn themselves. So they lingered, they loitered. There was a moment where you thought, man, Rodgers may make them pay for that. So O'Connell's been saying the right things. It starts with me as a play caller. I got to reassess where I'm at. The bye is always a great time to reflect on where you're at. I think we know, and certainly he knows what the identity of the team is. He may want to look at himself and say, okay, I don't want to force things. I don't want to put Darnold in positions where he fails. I want to keep him in positions where he can succeed. Again, where's Aaron Jones going to be in that picture? Even if he does come back from this hip injury, you got to wonder how durable he's going to be throughout a long season with the amount of carries he's been getting. And then stress you're putting on that defense, as great as they are, as hungry as they are, as ravaging as they are, and as playmaking as they are, those reps will add up down the road too, and you got to keep them off the field a little bit more.
Right. And that kind of takes us to another part of the conversation, which I was thinking about. And hey, look, getting TJ Hawkinson back, I would like Kevin O'Connell to introduce TJ Hawkinson as this is your true security blanket, as it was for Kirk Cousins. I think Cousins knew how to use Hawkinson brilliantly, where he was always there underneath. He's faster than most tight ends, he has better hands. He also has this great sense of how to get open in spaces that even though Johnny Mundt and Josh Oliver have done a good job, they're not of the same caliber of a Pro Bowl tight end. And that may be the button that they push. I think that's the point is you can't just keep saying Darnold throw downfield. And also I can't discern, even if I watch the tape 100%, the intent of plays. Were there times where guys were running deep and there was supposed to be an underneath option, but Darnold just kept choosing to throw downfield? That also may have been the case as well. But I think that that's one of those, as we talk about next steps to be really in this list of where we started, those types of teams to be there, then I think you have to have plays and ideas with Darnold that shakes him out of it a little bit if he's in a rut, and also have to realize if he is in a rut that throwing it on 3rd and 15 when every other coach would just run a delay handoff there is probably not the play if he's a little bit shaky. The same with throwing it in the red zone, couple of interceptions there, and he almost had a red zone interception in this game as well. I want to talk about the trade deadline, though. It's not coming up just yet, but this is the time where the trade conversations start to happen. And Kwesi Adofo-Mensah's got the bye week. If Kwesi, he's vacationing in Cabo or whatever for the week, if he just happens to pick up his phone and text you, Murph, and say, "Hey, Murph, I love Monday Morning Murph on Purple Insider. What do you think we should do at the deadline, man?" What would you say back to Mr. Adofo-Mensah?
Don't be shy. Take every call you can. Look, I love the fact and build up some depth. I love the fact that in the last couple of years, the NFL has morphed more into the NHL, NBA, MLB realm, where the trade deadline is a thing. It's not a place to offload a pick or two, or it's not a place to piece together a better practice squad. It's now being used by front offices as a way to improve your team at that moment. And I find that exciting as a fan, because most general managers have their work's done in March and April, and then they just hand everything off to the head coach and say, "Wake me when it's time to start firing people." But really, what this allows a team like the Vikings to do, because again, you're 5 weeks in. I think the trade deadline's around November 1st, so you're going to have the Lions game and Rams game. You're gonna be pretty much halfway through your season. You know who your identity is. They already know what it is now. They're going to know what their depth issues are, and I would say depth at the running back position is probably the number one priority, because we've already seen how impactful Jones can be, both when he's healthy and when he's not healthy. Because trusting Ty Chandler to convert a 3rd and 2 and a 4th and 2 is not as much of a sure thing as Jones, right? And Jones also gives the options in the passing game that Chandler just isn't capable of doing, at least not now. So what'll be on the market then? And maybe some depth at the guard position, defensive tackle. These are positions that really get worn down by attrition, just the brutal nature of the game. If something's out there, NFL GMs, they love to talk about how we're really we're planning for 2025 or planning for 2026. And yes, that makes sense. You got to have a long range plan. You got to protect your draft assets. But you already got your franchise quarterback in JJ McCarthy. You don't have a lot of draft capital. And if you are an elite team, you're probably going to be picking outside the top 25. So parting with a 1st round draft pick might not be as painful or risky this season. But beyond all of that, if this is one of those 1 in a decade seasons for the Vikings to make a deep playoff run and finally get in that Super Bowl, in this market, you can't afford to play conservative. And just look across the river over at the Twins and all the beating they're taking for not doing anything when they had all the momentum from their playoff success last year. This is a moment right now. It's a moment that doesn't come along very often, where you can be aggressive and plug holes that you feel like can take you to that next level and protect you throughout a 17-game season. So if one of your tackles or your guards or Jones goes down again late in the season, you have viable options behind them to keep the train running. So I say, Kwesi, take every phone call. Don't be conservative. Don't mortgage everything, but don't be afraid to say, you know what? We're going to take a shot. And here's why, because this team has worked too hard. O'Connell's worked too hard, and the fans have been waiting long enough. We're gonna take our shot.
Well, and also when you look at all the metrics, they look like a Super Bowl caliber team through 5 weeks. This isn't one of those kind of fake, oh, they made a bunch of field goals or had the other team fumble a bunch of times. Takeaways could regress a little bit. Giveaways need to regress as well for the Vikings because they've had too many turnovers of their own. But as far as all the play to play, point differential, how long you've kept the lead, all these things, the DVOA, which is the Aaron Schatz Football Outsiders old school stat, is pointing toward the Vikings have one of the best defenses of the last 20, 30 years so far through this 5 weeks. I don't know if they'll do that for the entire season, but a cornerback, a defensive tackle, especially who can get after the passer would be a great addition for them. I think maybe Miles Sanders from Carolina, who's been a little buried there, and even Tony Pollard from Tennessee, just thinking of running backs on teams that could be contributors. Pollard was great with Ezekiel Elliott as a 1-2 punch. And if they don't really trust Ty Chandler, they should look for somebody like that. But here's my question for you, Murph, though. The first round pick, this team has almost no draft capital for next year. If somebody comes calling, maybe it's Tennessee for Jeffrey Simmons, who's a beast defensive tackle, says, hey, we want that first round pick for next year. We're rebuilding. We need firsts. Are you okay with doing that?
Absolutely. You have to be. Again, you picked 12. You got your quarterback last year, as you mentioned, no capital. It's a lightning in a bottle type moment for them. And I understand front offices. They're managing for the future, and they have to be responsible caretakers of the salary cap and the roster and providing the right opportunities to the right people at the right moments. But boy, as fans and just general observers, they don't want to hear that. They don't want to hear about actuaries. They don't want to hear about risk management. They want to hear we're 6-0, we're 7-1. We're shoving some chips in the middle and we're going to make this happen. And I don't find that being that risky considering what the Vikings have at their core positions. And a young head coach who seems like he's not only got the locker room, but he's got a lot of it of confidence from the fan base and the front office and ownership. And let's not forget, Ziggy and Mark Wilf like to spend. I mean, criticize them for whatever you want. They spend to the cap. And they're dedicated to winning. And they've had this team for almost 20 years. They are hungry for a title too. Would not take much of convincing to say, hey, we may have to move some money around. We may have to get creative. We may have to pay a tax. We may have to get clipped. Let's do it. And I don't see that being a hard sell up the ownership chain. What you want to make sure is that it's a good mix from a chemistry standpoint, scheme standpoint. And also, you want to reward the guys in the locker room that have gotten you to 7-1 or 8-2 or whatever the record may be by that trade deadline and say, we've got your back and we believe in you. And here's a little bit more help for that. Same with the coaches, same with the fan base. They want to be rewarded. They don't want to be told about what a great position they are for 2025 or 2026. This is a win now situation, especially in this market, and that can't be underestimated. This isn't San Francisco or Kansas City or Philadelphia where they've had recent championships and then, they've made aggressive moves in the past and they want to maybe be a little more conservative now. Just look at San Francisco right now. They're struggling. They've been on the doorstep and haven't won. That window may be closing. Cincinnati Bengals, I thought they were going to go to the Super Bowl this year. They're 1-4 and struggling. The Lions window may close after this season. There are no guarantees for anything. If you feel like you have an opportunity to be playing in February in New Orleans, I think you have to do everything you can to make that possible.
I agree with that. I also watched Jaden Daniels and Caleb Williams yesterday and thought you might want to do it now and the cap space for the future. If it doesn't work out, and you move on from Sam Darnold onto JJ McCarthy next year, it's not like you gave up the whole team. You are going to have one of the highest numbers of salary cap space for next season after Kirk is finally off the books. So you can do this again with going to the free agent market and being a big spender. Okay, last thing, Murph. How many wins did the Vikings end up with this year? What do you think?
Yeah, we're ticking up, right? What I don't even remember what I did. I say 10 last week? I think I was close to 10.
I think so.
I'm going to go 11. And I don't want to just be cheap and say every win I'm going to go up one. Let me see how they do against Detroit. I think if they win against Detroit, I'm going to go 12-13 because that's going to be a monster game. And oh, by the way, they haven't been at US Bank Stadium in a while, and that's coming off the bye. They're going to be 5-0. The Lions play Dallas next week. They potentially could be 4-1. God, what a matchup that's going to be. That's going to be the marquee game in the league, and you can only imagine how crazy it's going to be at US Bank Stadium with fans coming in for a divisional matchup against an old school rival and their first home game in a long time, sitting at 5-0. So I'm going to go 11 right now. So I got them going, let's say 11-6, but trending rapidly toward 12.
I've probably got them at 12. Man, what a start to the season for the Minnesota Vikings. And we will be breaking it down every Monday on Monday Morning Murph, including next week, where we'll react to whatever happened on Sunday and how it impacts the Vikings. And then we'll go from there. Long way to go, but the start that is an absolute dream for this organization. Thanks so much for all your time, Murph. Appreciate it.
All right, sounds good.
Football.